Donald Trump is easily the stupidest president we've ever had, and it seems like the mainstream media is using that as its excuse to not fully cover Donald Trump's very clear cognitive decline. But he's forcing their hand. It is so bad, so obvious, and so transparent that Donald Trump's brain is melting that the mainstream media is finally being forced to cover it. And we saw just why during a very disturbing and dangerous press conference today with Trump completely melting down. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we can get into the most shocking moment of this press conference, I want to start with how Donald Trump began this all with a very weird meltdown about crime stats in D.C.
Crime in D.C. Will the administration release its own crime statistics to counter their misinformation? And will those individuals who are intentionally misrepresenting crime data and fudging the books, like you said, be penalized for endangering the public?
They are under investigation right now. They are giving us phony crime stats, just like they gave other stats in the financial world, but they're phony crime stats. And Washington, D.C. is at its worst point, and it will soon be at its best point. You're going to have a very safe, you're going to have a crime-free city. I mean, I say that. You're going to have virtually a crime-free city. And these are strong men, but the criminals are strong men and women, but they're strong men. And these are people that don't play games. We're not playing games. These are criminals.
I feel obligated, as is my job, to say that the crime stats that Donald Trump is saying are made up and phony and not real are largely from the DOJ, which Pam Bondi is in charge of, but really by extension, Donald Trump is in charge of. So I don't know how he allowed those phony crime stats to come out. It's not really an argument that you can make that both Pam Bondi is doing a great job and everything's perfect, but she's also lying about the crime stats in DC. To what end? For what purpose? You can't blame Joe Biden anymore. Yeah, it just doesn't really land. But the rewriting of history is what this presidency is largely all about in every action that they take, shifting the narrative, distracting, making up phony arguments to help support their idiotic policies, one of which Donald Trump was asked about right here.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the Smithsonian, I know that your administration is seeking to weed out a lot of this left-wing spin that's in the museums, but we're seeing from people like Brian Stelter or other commentators that they're insinuating that you are trying to change history according to your narrative. What's your response to that, and is there anything you particularly like to do?
Well, we want the museums to treat our country fairly. We want the museums to talk about the history of our country in a fair manner, not in a woke manner or in a racist manner, which is what many of them, not all of them, but many of them are doing. Our museums have an obligation to represent what happened in our country over the years, good and bad, but what happened over the years in an accurate way. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Press. Thank you, Press.
It really seems like interior decorating and renaming, whether it be bodies of water or military bases or deciding what can be in museums, has been the sole focus of Donald Trump lately in his presidency. He passed his giant billionaire tax cut. He's made life in America more unaffordable. He's failed in every tariff negotiation. So I guess he's just kind of sitting back at this point and saying, let's just play golf. Let's attack museums. Let's rename bodies of water. Let's just have fun. Let's grift as well. That's what the presidency has become for Donald Trump. But it's a scary precedent that he's setting, and also a great opportunity for Democrats to talk about how Donald Trump never cared about free speech, never cared about free expression, never cared about the truth. And we can actually start to reclaim this issue, which progressives have actually always fought for, although the right has tried to co-opt free speech as their thing right now. It's just a completely nonsense talking point. Speaking of which, we start to saw some of that cognitive decline come out with Trump's fake story here before we get into him just struggling to read.
Last week they found $29 billion and they couldn't figure out where it came from. I said, check the tariff shelf. And they said, how did you know that's where it came from? We're taking in billions and even trillions of dollars in tariffs.
So one of two things is true here. Either Donald Trump's staff actively acts like idiots around him to coddle the president's feelings, or they don't actually know where they got tens of billions of dollars, which I'm going to go ahead and say stretches the imagination a little bit farther than I'm willing to let it. But that's the type of environment of coddling that Donald Trump is experiencing in the White House. And it's probably because not only does he act like a toddler, but he sounds and reads like one.
And they paid into the system. They deserve it. Last month, I signed one big, beautiful bill and allowed no tax on Social Security for our great seniors, okay? So how's that? Not bad, right? No tax on Social Security for our seniors. And to protect our benefits, we've already kicked nearly 275,000 illegal aliens off of the Social Security system. These are people, many of them have already left the country, and yet we were...
First of all, no tax on Social Security was not in Donald Trump's agenda. Neither was no tax on tips. They think that if they continue to say it, it will come true. Come April, it won't. So Donald Trump is going to have a lot of people really upset with him. And that's going to really impact the way a lot of people prepare for their taxes. So great job on affordability. Once again, Donald screwing over the working man. But he's just slurring and sloshing and reading close but far away. And what is that word? Stumbling and bumbling. He's always been a moron. He's always struggled to read. He can't really read. But the cognitive impairment is there. Again, if his staff has to hold his hand and has to coddle him and has to write in the biggest text possible for blind Donald to blabber through, then we've got a real problem here. Not just because this is an idiotic president that we've always known is an idiotic president, but because he's more angry than ever. He's more incensed. This is someone who's more extreme. And it comes out with his political attacks like we saw right here.
So vicious what they do. Elizabeth Warren said she was an Indian. We call her Pocahontas. She's a liar. She lied her whole career. Based on the fact that she was an Indian, she was able to get into certain colleges, get certain jobs, get into certain universities to work there. She's a liar and a mean person. She's a nut job. I watched her the other night. She's all hopped up endorsing a communist in New York City. And she was all excited and jumping up and down. She's got to take a drug test. She really does. She's got to take a drug test. There's no way somebody can act that way and be normal. What she's done to our financial institutions, he destroys people.
This is a much more extreme version of Donald Trump, a version of Donald Trump who is attacking Elizabeth Warren for saying, look at the damage that she's done to our economic systems. That is the worst projection I've ever heard, as Trump is actively coercing business leaders into bribing him in exchange for more favorable tariffs. Donald Trump has decided that he himself will control our economy in whatever way pleases him in any given moment, or helps to benefit his crypto schemes or his businesses or his son's new business ventures. That's what Donald Trump is really locked in on. That's what he cares about. And it's embarrassing that we have business leaders falling in line. I thought the point of FU money was to say FU, but apparently not. It's to bend the knee, as Tim Miller broke down right here.
I know you're shaking your head and you're saying, why aren't these CEOs standing up? You just said to me in commercial break. Okay, yeah, I'm not saying they're not pathetic. But did Donald Trump play Tim Cook, or did Tim Cook play Donald Trump? Because Tim Cook got exactly what he wanted. And yes, he embarrassed himself. He gave Donald Trump a gold phone, but he's not paying the tariffs. And it works for his customers, it works for his employees, it works for his shareholders. What it doesn't work for is the future of capitalism and democracy.
He is paying the tariffs, just not as bad of tariffs as he thought he was going to pay. And it's humiliating. And these guys, could you imagine the inverse of this? You know, what Wall Street, what your CEO buddies would be saying if Kamala Harris had been elected and she decided that in order to avoid the wealth tax that I want to put in, all you have to do is come in and give me a woke golden calf that was made by an indigenous woman of color or something. And as long as you bring me that, as long as you bring me that,
crafted this basket.
As long as you give me that, then you don't have to pay the tax. I'm going to pay somebody else. Everybody, the Wall Street Journal would be up in arms. The guys on Fox would be losing. The world would be on fire if that happened. And this happened, and these guys are all too afraid to say anything. It's embarrassing. It's pathetic. And by the way, I don't think it's going to necessarily bail them out. They're playing. This is a massive risk that they're playing. And Donald Trump, the market is a guardrail for him, but there's not like a magic button in the Oval Office like the Diet Coke button that's like make the market go back up. If things start to get out of hand, if things start to unravel, if we get into a recession, Donald Trump can't taco his way out of it. So I think these guys are really playing with fire for no discernible reason to me except for short-term interests, just, the next report.
Okay.
How are these people in charge? How do they consider themselves leaders? I guess they just don't really care. But it kind of goes to show that the billionaires are happy for things to be broken, there to be economic turmoil. They can always benefit, they can always profit, they can always prosper. Anyone who tells you that a wealth tax or an unrealized gains tax on people with more than $100 million is oh so scary and terrifying, because what if they lose their money? What if the stocks go down? It seems like the stocks don't go down for these guys, and they can always find a way to make even more money, that they're pretty set. So maybe we stop worrying about the worst case scenario for the billionaires and we start acting in the actual case scenario, the real life circumstances of a middle class shrinking by the day as Donald Trump steals wealth from the bottom 50% to direct it towards 10 people in America? Yeah, maybe we should stop thinking about them as much, especially as we're getting screwed, as even Fox will report right now.
Breaking news right now, and a spike in the producer price level of inflation. Take a look. Markets are selling off here because the July PPI came in up 0.9%. Worse than the estimated up 0.2%. This is the headline number. It was expected up 0.2, came up 0.9%. Year over year, it is up 3.3% versus an estimate of up 2.5%. Now, when you look at core, it's also troubling because in the core PPI, it was up 0.9% versus an estimate of 0.2%. Year over year, the core up 3.7%, also higher than the estimated expectation, which was up 2.9%. These numbers have caused markets to drop. The Dow Industrial is down 105, the Nasdaq down 71.
Even Fox is saying it. Trump is destroying the economy. Full stop. It's clear. He is an idiot, and we are taking the brunt of it. That's why we're going to keep calling it out on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.